Welcome to part 1 in our educational series to show you how to easily extract Oracle Cloud ERP data using standard methods provided by Oracle. This video will demonstrate creating an incremental data flow using Oracle Data Transforms. Specifically, we will be extracting accounts payable invoice data in this demo from ERP Cloud into an autonomous database. Here are the quick details of what we'll be doing in this exercise. Now, let's get started with step 1 of building a complete analytic warehouse with Oracle Cloud ERP data.
I wanted to show this picture really quick because what it shows you at a high level is Oracle Data Transforms. That's your user interface to build your ETL. And it's your traffic cop between all three of these different systems. You got three systems in play here. Fusion ERP using the BI Cloud connector that they provide. Object storage, which is the middle ground that takes the files from Fusion and then gives them to ADW. And then you have ADW, which is where Oracle Data Transforms is built. So you log into your ADW instance and you run Data Transforms from the Data Studio. And it's also where all the data is going to get moved and where it's going to be stored for you to do analytics on later. So enough with the picture. Let's just jump right into building your first data transforms. Before you start to build data transforms, it's a good idea to have a plan for what you're going to build. And that's the tricky part because Oracle provides thousands of PVO objects or public view objects that all have different pieces of data in them. So you have to know what you want to get. So what I'm going to do in this demo here is talk a little bit about that, but we're going to be very specific. And the demo will be to pull some data for accounts payable. You'll notice I pulled up a spreadsheet really quick and I documented what objects do I want to get from Fusion ERP and what are their names and what am I going to call them when I'm building the transforms. So it's a good idea to take a spreadsheet, and I will provide this template because it works really good. Once you fill this out, it helps you copy and paste when you're building a bunch of transforms sequentially, and it also is good to have later for your documentation of everything you built. So I'm going to move this over to the left. Just know that I'm going to be copying and pasting from that when I build all of the data flows down the road. So PVOs, what is a PVO? If you're listening to this, you probably already know, and you know they're confusing and there's thousands of them. So what I want to do is make it super easy so you understand. It's really easy to get the right data out of Oracle into a warehouse, and it's actually pretty fast with the new Oracle Data Transforms. They have built a really nice UI on ODI in the background to make it easy to move this data yourself. So to get started, Oracle provided you with offerings that have thousands of items in them. What I like to do first is, once you know the objects that you want to move to your warehouse, create your own offering. And all that is a group of PVOs. So I created one, AAA Test AP Data Store. And if you look in this offering, I just click on it. I put in it the AP invoice header, lines, and distribution extracts. If you wanted to add more PVOs, you just can go ahead and do that with the add plus button up here, and you'll get a whole large list of PVOs from the financials world, and you could pick the ones that you want. This makes it easier to do your work later, and it is also easier to manage your last extract date for full loads because easier to find if you've got a small data offering by subject area or module. So you'll notice my last extract date is blank because I haven't loaded these yet. And we're going to come back to this area in a little bit and take a look at some other things. So for now, let's jump over to Oracle Data Transforms, part of Autonomous Data Warehouse, and let's get started. The first thing you want to do is just create a project. I've already done that. Click on Projects icon and click Create Project. You can see I already did it. All the project is a name. So if I edit that, you'll see all I did was paste my name of a project and hit save. Pretty easy. The second thing you need to do is, before you go into your project and start building transforms, this little option called Data Entities. We've already done the connections that we did in an exercise. That was more offline and very detailed. So our connections are there, but now we need to basically import the table structures from Fusion ERP, and they call them data entities, that we want to load over to ADW with our data transforms. So to do that, click on data entities, click on the import data entities button at the top, and now you'll get a dialog that says which connection do you want to leverage. And here we need to pick our BICC Fusion ERP connection that we've created because we're pulling the data over from there. And then I'm going to do select offerings because I want to focus just on the offering that I created so I don't have to see a bunch of stuff. And then this mask at the bottom, if you do choose a larger offering, for example, financials, and there's thousands of things, you can put a mask in here with percents and say, hey, just give me this PVO. So I could put a full PVO name in here and it will only pull that one in. But I'm just going to say, hey, give me everything that's in this offering that I created. So I should get those 3 PVOs that I showed you earlier when we were in BICC. So I'll go ahead and hit start. It'll just create a quick job in the background and it will import those objects into our list of data entities in Oracle Data Transforms. Once that job has completed, if you refresh data entities with the little refresh icon, upper right hand, you'll see the 3 PVOs, invoice headers, distributions, and lines, the alphabetical order, are all now data entities that we can leverage when we're building our data transforms. Next step is to go to your project. Now that we've imported those, we'll click on our Fusion ERP Payables project and we will begin to build out our first data flow. So let's click on a data flow and let's get started. I'll click on the Create Data Flow button first, and then I'm going to copy from my cheater spreadsheet the data flow name I want to create, which is Invoice Header, and just hit Create. The first time you do this, which in this case is my first time, it does ask you where do you want to get these PVOs from, because it's still not quite sure for some reason, even though we imported the entities and we told it. So let's go ahead and repick BICC Fusion. And then the schema we're going to pick is going to be between financial, supply chain, and HR, basically, with the really ugly names. But once this comes up, we will pick the financial schema. Now that it's done thinking, I hit the drop down here and you can see there's the 3 different schemas that are available in financials. And we will just pick the financial schema because that's where we know those are from. And how I know that, if I pull my spreadsheet over here, you can see the PVO name has FSCM top model in front of it. So there are times where you need all of them if you need other things from different schemas, so you will have to import all of those. But once you're imported stuff, initially, you're pretty much done. All right, the next step is we've got a blank canvas. We can see that our objects are available now for us to pick. So one trick when this list gets really long, it gets confusing. So you can always take your PVO name from your spreadsheet again, paste it into this name field. What that does is it says, okay, there it is. And then you can drag it. If I didn't do that, you can hover over it or you can move things around a little bit. But I don't know which one's header, so I'll have to hover over it and it will eventually tell me that this is header. I'm impatient, so I'm just going to drag it. There you go, invoice header extract. But remember, paste the PVO name up here. It'll make your life a lot simpler. I always have a spreadsheet, right? Okay, now that we've pasted the PVO name object in here, the only other thing you're going to see is it's going to go from source to target. This is our source. What is our target? Our target is going to be a table. So you'll click this table icon with a plus in the upper right hand, and it's going to say add a data entity. So what we're going to do is go to our spreadsheet, grab our table name we wanted to create, and then we're going to tell it to create a table, and the connection type will be Oracle because it's an Oracle database. And here I only have one database connection, so it defaulted that, and it used the schema that I had touched before. You definitely want to use this schema, not your admin schema. So there's my custom schema that we created in the original working session where we did all the config items. So I'm going to go ahead and hit next on here, and it's going to show me all the columns that's going to be imported. Here's where you can add or remove columns if you want. I don't suggest doing that for ERP. Bring everything over initially. I'll hit next again, and that's just a preview, and then we will hit save. And now we have the building blocks of our first data flow. And then you should save at this point. Once you save, after telling it what the table name is, you will get a little bit different on your screen. You'll notice, I'm going to move this over, give us some room. That little transfer button showed up. Now that transfer is where a lot of settings are. You're going to have settings in two places that you need to touch for an incremental load. One under the transfer and one under the table name. I'm going to start with transfer because that's where most of the stuff happens and most of the settings occur that are important. So click on transfer. You'll get the options over on the right. I'm going to expand it so you can see everything. There's help. So each of these lines, if you do want to know what's in there, you can click on the help. It'll give you a little idea of what's going on. But what I want to do is go through, there's about 2 pages worth of settings in the transfer. I'm going to touch on the ones that are important to do a incremental load, and I'll skip over some of them that are not. The first one, submit BICC job, second on the list. Make sure that's true. We do want to submit a job to BI Cloud Connector to ask for the files to be sent to the Oracle Cloud bucket. Second one, use Oracle staging table. That should be set to true for an incremental load. There's another important one down here that we're not going to touch right now, but it's called BICC extract job type. You can see that set to data. We should keep that to data for a pure incremental load. You'll notice there's another option, which is just keys or data and keys. The keys option is used if you want to do a process of removing deleted records in your data warehouse that were deleted in Fusion ERP. It's something you don't do all the time or for all tables, but if you want to do it, it is now available in data transforms to do that. In which case you would say, hey, give me data and keys or just keys preferably, and do a slightly different process, which we will talk about in a different lesson. So we'll leave that one set as data. The next one, clean up copy data logs. I love to set that to true because it cleans up the database after it's done a lot of its work. The limited file format will be a CSV, and then the compression on that format, you should change that to gzip, which is supported by ADW. Now I'm going to scroll down to get the second page worth. We stopped at gzip. Next one we want to look at is sync deleted records. That is currently set to false. That goes hand in hand with the option up top, which was data and keys, and doing activity for syncing the deleted records from Fusion ERP. We're going to leave that as false. We're not doing that at this juncture, and we'll move on. But I just want to know that that one goes with the other one I talked about above. Next one we want to take a look at is save last load timestamp. We are doing a incremental load, so that is definitely true. You want the system to maintain that timestamp for you and for you not to have to do any work or even think about it. So set that to true for your incremental loads. The next one and last one on this list is clean up temporary objects. It is set to true already. But we leave it at true, double check, make sure it's set to true. In case you set it to false and you changed it, that cleans up the activity after the loads are done so you don't have extra garbage in your data warehouse after your nightly loads are complete. And you'll notice there's a little arrow by everything that I touched. You get a little yellow arrow. Just keep those in mind. Those help you keep track when you're doing large volumes of data loads that you kind of got your settings and you touched them in the right spots and you didn't miss one. I'm going to shrink that up. We've finished the things that are on the transfer option. There's about 25 or so options and we only touched 5 of them. I'll also provide in hard copy format. Here are the things we touched so you don't have to remember what I just did. There'll be a little cheat sheet for that. Now that we're done with the transfer, let's go ahead and click on save. And then let's click on the table and we will get a series of options on the right hand side. I'm going to expand it again so you can see all of them. I'll start at the top, general. That's just the name of the table that's going to be created in ADW. You can edit that data entity and change the format of certain columns if you want by clicking on this edit data entity option, which generally we are not going to do unless something doesn't work and we have to do that. The next option is attributes. This is important for incremental loads. You do need to tell it what is the primary key of the table that should be used for the incremental load. How do you know what that is? We have to go back to BI Cloud Connector. If we don't know that, it will tell you. So we are doing the invoice header extract. So let's go ahead and click on that. Another reason to have my own data store, right? That was really easy to find. The PVO I was working because it was 1 out of 3, right? So another good reason to have your own custom data offerings in here. So let's click on that data store. And I was in earlier, so it kind of cheated, but what you need to do is click on the primary key, sort it descending, and the primary key will fly up to the top normally. When you come in here, they're in alphabetical order. So invoice ID is the primary key. So let's go back to our data transforms, and we're going to scroll down until we find the invoice ID in alphabetical order. Right here, and we're just going to check it on. Note, sometimes there is more than one key. Invoice lines is a good example. It's invoice ID and line number, in which case you would check them both. Here we only have one key, invoice ID, so let's go ahead and check that. And we'll go on. There is nothing in preview, so we're going to skip that. The last option you need to touch is options. And for an incremental load, you do need to change the mode at the top to incremental update. And then we're just going to check a few other things. Drop and create target table. Make sure that is false. We do not want it to drop and create the target table on a regular basis. That would only be in full load instances where you maybe want to drop and create the target table. The other thing we need to do is make sure create target table is set to true. We do not have a table in our data warehouse yet. So we do need to set that true because we wanted to create it on the fly. If you were doing something custom and not moving data from Fusion ERP and you already have a target table, you would want to set that to false. Last thing for incremental truncate target table, make sure that is false. We don't want it to delete the data after the incremental load is, because we're going to throw data in on top of it tomorrow. So that is it. All we touched in this setup was incremental update. And the other thing we did, if you go back to that whole setup, we really only touched the attributes tab. We told it what was the primary key, and on the options, we said it's an incremental load, and that other things we just double checked. But there we only really touched 2 things. So feels like I did a lot of work, but if you look at the cheat sheet later, you'll see the transfer, we touch about 5 things. In the table definition, we touch about 2. And that's it. So you can create multiple data flows really, really fast. So let's go ahead and save again. And that is it for this data flow. Once you click start, which I'm going to do right now, boom, and start, this is going to run the data flow and it's going to do all the work for us, right? It's going to kick off a job, which we'll look at the details in a little bit. This job I know takes about 2 minutes to call out to BICC and get the files from Fusion ERP. Fusion ERP will load those files into our file storage, our Oracle Cloud bucket. And then last, it's going to take those files and load them into ADW into our new table. So one thing you can do, I went back on the breadcrumbs a little bit to my project, and you can go to the job section. And you'll notice there's job number 22 that it kicked off. And under that job, if you click the little arrow by the physical step, you can see it's just getting started. It takes it about 40 seconds for Fusion ERP to extract those files and send them. So that's what we're waiting to happen right now. By the time we're done, there will be about 25 different steps that have occurred. And we'll see that our row counts are going to be just under 50,000 records for the invoice header. But a little news to note, this is very powerful. You can see every little piece of code that Oracle Data Transforms is executing as it's asking the different systems to do their different tasks. So if you ever have any problems with connectivity, with anything, all of those are going to be documented in here extremely well. And the system is a lot better than if you had used the Oracle Data Replicator, which was built into Oracle Analytics, which is now deprecated, unfortunately, but it did not have this kind of detail behind the scenes. So when things failed and didn't work quite as good, it was hard to figure out what was going on. You also couldn't customize anything. So although it's disappointing they got rid of and deprecated data replication within OAC, this is exponentially better, and it also doesn't tax your OAC system running at night. It runs all on the autonomous data warehouse, which is faster and significantly cheaper. So thank you, Oracle. Actually appreciate what you did on this one. You'll notice as I refresh, we are getting more steps, and this is pretty much complete. It's probably dropping the last little bit of stuff and cleaning up, but you'll notice it did merge 46,000 rows into our table, into Autonomous Data Warehouse. There are the insert counts. This is fully done. So last thing we're going to do, just to prove this out, is go back out on the breadcrumbs at the top. What I want to get back out to is this data entities. I'm going to click on that. When we look at the data entities, we can now see the 3 PBOs are entities, as well as the one table that we just created in our ADW warehouse. So this list will get really long over time, but as you're just starting to build, it's nice to see, oh, I can see what happened behind the scenes. It really gives you a good idea of what's going on. In the next exercise, we're going to expand on this a little bit. What I'll do is I'll load a few more data flows. We'll put invoice lines, we'll put invoice distributions, and then we will build, if I go back a little bit here to my project, in that exercise, we're going to build 2 more data flows. We'll build a workflow to string them together, and then we'll tag them to a schedule so it runs every night. So it kind of completes the picture of getting extracts that run every night without me thinking about it. So thanks for joining, and hope to see you on the next videos.